Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Vixen Voice. Today, we are continuing our discussion on artificial intelligence. I don't know about you ladies, but today I'm feeling pretty artificial in my intelligence. I've had a long week and a lot of podcasts today, so I'm hoping you'll carry the torch. And of course, I'm joking around, but we're excited to chat today. You heard earlier this week from Marissa Brassfield, who is founder of Ridiculously Efficient. I love that name. She advises visionary entrepreneurs how to use tech like artificial intelligence with integrity. And I love that last part. So tune into our interview if you missed it. And Marissa and I kind of talk about spiritual elements of AI, what's going on in the market, her journey, how she specializes in this. It's fantastic. And I'm also excited because we have Megan Factor. So you've actually heard from Megan's boss, Jackie Biebenbroth, who was on in January, and we were talking to her about her wonderful brand strategy and content marketing firm, Muse. So Megan is the content manager, and she has some great tips for you on how to use AI in your branding and content management. And I think she might even have some free downloads for you with tips. So I will share with you a lot of this is new to me. My team uses AI where we use it. I do not. So this is great because a lot of our listeners are in my shoes. So I am representing the audience out there, right? So I'm going to ask y'all questions and then just kind of dig deeper where it reaches my curiosity. So first of all, welcome, ladies. So happy to have you on today.
I'm so excited to be back. Thank you so much, April, for having us and putting this together. And every time we get together, we never have enough time. So the fact that we have a separate space just to talk through AI and all the ways that we can use it is just exciting. I'm looking forward to the conversation today.
Yay,
Yes.
me too.
April, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much. And can't wait to get chatting about AI.
Awesome. So before we dig in, Megan, it is your first time on the Vixen Voice. So I'd love to start with you and ask, we have I'm blessed to have amazing women on the show all the time. And you are the newest amazing woman to be on the show. So would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself? Maybe you can have a pivotal story that really made you who you are today.
Sure, yeah. So, as you mentioned, I'm the content manager at Muse, and I've been with the agency a little over 3 years. And gosh, I feel like I have learned more in these last 3 years than I have in my whole life put together. So it has been an incredibly transformative couple of years so far. And I think, April, echoing what you said about being in an environment of impactful, empowering women. I have been so thankful my whole life to have this this long line of women that I've learned from personally and professionally, from my undergraduate experience to getting my MBA and entering the workforce. So I think there have been so many small pivotal moments. I don't know if that's an oxymoron or not, a small pivotal moment, but they have felt like such monumental instances of growth that I've had. And again, just in the last couple years, it's been an amazing knowledge journey, spiritual journey, and very timely with our topic today about AI. I've really delved into that deeply over the last year or so. So yeah.
Awesome. I can't wait to hear what you have to share with us. I don't know if you're listening, and Marisa, you too, but I could totally relate. As Megan said, I know for different reasons, but she's learned so much in the last 3 years. I mean, it's so crazy the speed at which we learn things today, right? Like I'm looking back the last year since I sold my financial planning firm and went full time with the Vixen Voice, just how much I've learned about the coaching industry and online marketing and online courses. Like it's almost like these days you have to get like a PhD in 6 months to a year, right? So let's start there. Maybe what is something that each of you are learning or focusing on right now?
Ooh, this is so juicy. So I have been really looking at how technology is transforming the nature of work, how we work, under what circumstances, what the business models look like. And something I'm learning right now with an advising and a business partner is what are the new collaboration models? The standard ways of working that I know are W-2 and as a consultant. And some of these models where you're working inside someone else's business are they're kind of antiquated. You know, they don't really reflect a true partnership and what that looks like. So for me, that's joint ventures, but it's how do we structure the joint venture agreement from the start so that people are really incentivized to bring their best work, their best results, their best selves, and really take that long-term outlook. And it's a very, very new world for me. I've intentionally focused on container-based, boundary protecting consulting models. So having something where there's just enough partnership and infrastructure in there to hold the partnership together, but it's built for the long term rather than just for 3 months or 6 months is very new and exciting. And inside all of that, how do you build incentives that naturally bring out everyone's intrinsic gifts? So lots of fun stuff happening in real time on this.
I actually love that. I agree with you. This W-2 versus 1099 model is like a little, yeah, it doesn't reflect our needs today, especially for small businesses and solopreneurs who are bringing in multiple people to help them. So I can't wait to see where you'll go with that. Megan, how about you? What's on deck for you as far as learning and new skill sets and knowledge right now?
Yeah, similar to AI, I've been really into SEO best practices recently and how we can be using those sorts of tools and programs and learnings and insights to provide even more value for our clients' content. So how do we take that nugget of what our client offers and their core messaging, how do we take that to the next level for their clients or their customers? How do we use keyword research and insights to get either the topics to the next level, or how do we pivot the content that we've created already to get it in front of more qualified eyeballs on the internet so we can be creating more value for our clients? So that's been a really deep topic for me lately, and I think it's changed how we approach content projects in a lot of ways at Muse. So it's been really interesting to sort of lead the charge of that at the agency.
I love it. And so this will show you how new I am to all of this, because I've always had like marketing firms or strategic partners who did a lot of this, even in my financial firm. But I am coaching a group of healers now, helping them get websites up and get, marketing in place so they can run their business as a business. And so I was actually Bex, who did make it today because she got stuck in a fun photo shoot with a client. But she and I were in California together, and I was like, oh, how can I like search words? And so I think she sent me to Google. It wasn't Google Trends, but it's the search word. And I spent like 2 hours looking up different words and what their reach is. Like,
Yeah.
It was fascinating for me because if you work with creatives, which healers are very similar, they're very tied to the name of their company. It came up for me because I was trying to optimize our Facebook group, and I was coached to get a very searchable SEO friendly term and 3 words, right? And a lot of times we want to be creative and fun with our titles, right? But it's counterintuitive. So it was shocking for me to see the words that trended well and had further reach versus the ones that didn't. And I just think so many of our listeners are solopreneurs and entrepreneurs, women really scaling their business. And I don't think much thought goes into that when you're naming your company. So Megan, do you have any tips when it comes to that? Marissa, I know this is in your wheelhouse too, but just a new way of thinking about everything you name today matters, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you think about finding your right audience, it's really about them finding you. So everything has to be optimized in a way that is searchable. And I think there's April, as you mentioned, that fine line between naming something in a really creative way that stands out, but also making it searchable for those audience members that maybe don't know exactly what they need, but they kind of have an idea. So it's those terms that are leading them ultimately to the brand that has the solution for them. But in terms of naming, I think that there's also an opportunity for a really interesting modifier to whatever brand name you have. So you can have this great, unique brand name, and maybe that's not necessarily what needs to change, but you can add a modifier that is more search friendly and tells a little bit more about your business. So sort of like a tagline in a way, and taglines can also be great places for optimization. So I think it is about approaching it from a creative way. It's almost like solving a puzzle. You know, you want to keep that creativity there, but how can you get that reach out of it as well with search terms?
Yeah, no, I love that. Go for it, Marissa. I hear that you have thoughts. Jump in.
I know. Well, I also I'm smiling as you're sharing, Megan. You're spot on. And I'll share when I founded Ridiculously Efficient in 2011. I was like, cool, it's easy to say. And then, so now my advice is easy to say and easy to spell, because one of the first things I discovered is that most folks, you know, moving quickly, especially entrepreneurs that I work with, can't spell ridiculously, can't spell efficient. And then I also have a first name where that's frequently misspelled. So, you know, we've got the trifecta in terms of names that are not so easy. So I now will give the advice to folks, you know, don't try to be too cute. And there's maybe Ridiculously Efficient is like the tagline, to your point, and we have a different business name, but you know, you can't untoast the toast, as they say.
I love it. Yeah, I have this issue with Vixen Gathering, and there's meaning behind the name, and I love the name, but we definitely need a modifier or a tagline. So my Facebook group is Abundant Business Women. So, you know, and then it has the Vixen Gathering up there, much easier, much more searchable. So I'll definitely be talking to my team about this one. Okay, let's give this food for thought. So I love it. So if someone's listening and they're like, oh my gosh, me too, because I bet a ton of people are, a ton of our listeners, are there some AI tools or other tools that you can recommend to help them figure out the easy to say and easy to search issue? Megan, I'll ask you first if you have anything.
Sure, yeah. So at Muse, we have used a few different AI tools, typically for ideation, and I think this is where search terms and finding those right terms start is all in ideation. So we typically use ChatGPT for ideation and research and coming up with you know, how to build around the core of what we're looking for. So once we've identified the right search terms, then it's incorporating them into the prompts that we use for AI. And I guess taking a step back to actually find those search terms, we use a combination of Google Search Console and a keyword research tool called SEMrush, which has been so impactful and has really made a difference in how we write about our clients and the terms that we use. So with those kind of keywords in mind, we'll bring those into ChatGPT or other AI writing tools. Jasper is one that we use. We've also looked into writer.io. So then again, going back to the prompting, I think that's often where people can get kind of hung up. You know, they know that they want something from these AI tools, whether they're incorporating keywords or anything else. So it's really the prompt that can make or break your result, which April, I think you mentioned a little bit ago, is something we'll get into possibly down the line of today.
What I'd love before we get there is Megan or Marissa hop in. Let's imagine we're talking to a solopreneur who's new to the game, and they're like, "What the heck are they talking about a prompt?" So, can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So the prompt is basically what you are asking the AI tool to do. So if you have a chat-based AI tool that you're using, it's asking questions, giving it direction. I like to think about it as like if I were giving direction to an assistant or an intern, what would I ask them to do? How would I phrase the ask in a way to get the deliverable that I want? And they can be very detailed. Oh my gosh, I've had some very, very long prompts, but I've noticed that the more effort you put into a quality prompt, the better the quality of the result.
Yeah, I've totally found that as well. And like I have a journalism degree, so I'm always like who, what, when, where, why, how. Like so you go through that.
Totally.
And the thinking that you would do to answer those questions, I find is often really helpful to construct a great prompt. So and then, of course, there are so many great prompt libraries and templates and resources where you can grab other people's best practices. But I've also found that my best learning is happening with me interacting with the tool and experimenting. Mm-hmm. What happens when I have what's called a chained prompt, where I am doing a multi-part conversation where I'm adding a little bit, I receive a response, and then I go, okay, now do this, and shape it in this way, and I'm adding more clarity, more specificity in that conversational. So it's 3 or 5 short back and forth exchanges rather than one upfront exchange. But sometimes those work really well too. And we mentioned ChatGPT here, which is the big heavy hitter. And there are a few other models that I would suggest. I love using ChatGPT for strategic work. And there is another tool by Anthropic called Claude, which I love using with creative work. So sometimes I might compare my experience with the same prompt using 2 different tools just to have that difference in what the results look like. And depending on what I'm using it for, that diversity may be helpful.
Interesting. So that kind of leads me. Thank you, ladies. As I told you, I'm playing the listener, so I'm gonna break down these technical terms so we can all understand. So, Megan, quick question for you. The second technology you talked about was SEMrush. Can you spell that for us, and we'll get it in the show notes as well?
Sure. Yeah, it's SEMrush.
Okay, and I had that correct.
They had very good. Excellent listening ears. I think it originally stood for Search Engine Marketing Rush. Okay. But they've simplified it to all lowercase, SEMrush.
I like it. Okay, and then we heard Jasper, ChatGPT, and also Quad. Okay, great. And we'll try to make sure we have links to all of this in the show notes if you're listening. And I agree with Marissa. Again, I'm new to this, but I'm in a mastermind. And the person who leads it is very big into playing with, AI tools and ChatGPT. And sometimes live, he'll be playing with it with us. And I'm like, gosh, I don't build time into my schedule to play with things, right? Like I really need that time for like playing and creativity built in, because a lot of times I'm depending on other people, but ultimately I'm the visionary, and I really feel I should have my hands in this and have a little better grasp of what's going on, right? I think back to when I joined my dad as his intern in financial planning and then went on to open my own firm. And I basically did every job in there except for the client meetings, right? So then later when I led the team, I was much more effective in understanding what they were doing because I had done all of their jobs. I mean, it changes over time, but I think that's a good reminder if you're listening. I'm a big fan of getting back to the basics and the fundamentals and making sure we keep our hands in things to a certain degree because, I'm sure you ladies have heard, but leveraging yourself out of jobs has been very popular in recent history, and you really can be an entrepreneur that leverages yourself out of everything. And sometimes when that happens, it hurts your business because you're out of touch with what's going on, right? So you obviously want to hire people who know more than you and trust them, but I feel like you should know enough to inspect what you expect, and have your hands in the game enough where you can still be an effective visionary, understanding what your team and your clients go through. So thank you. I'm going to go play with all these tools. So this is on my to-do list. So next time I'm in an airport with something needing to do, this is what I'm doing.
Oh, honestly, like this is how I usually start with entrepreneurs. We get together, I find half an hour for them in their day, and I'm like, okay, we're reinvesting that into having a lived experience with these technologies because anyone who has co-drafted or created content using AI has experienced some form of a generic response. Maybe it's early on where we're still kind of crafting our prompting style or trying out different things, figuring out what works for us. We experience a result that's been generated that feels really generic and bland. And without that experience, it's so easy to go, okay, yeah, we'll let the AI do it. Hold on. Because that extra degree of separation between you and the AI, that generated content is going to be a little bit more generic than you might have crafted it on your own if you're a wordsmith or someone who's really eloquent with words. It's going to feel generic and then, one step down. And so you come up with something that feels like they call it the uncanny valley in virtual reality and and robotics, where there's something that looks really human-like and it's close, but it's just fake enough that it boggles your brain a little bit. The same thing happens with other technologies, including AI. So there's this element of like, well, that kind of sounds like me, but it's also not. And a 2-degree shift for a really long, period of time, a few miles, like that ends up being an enormous distance from the original point. So any level of divergence from your original mission, the spirit of your mission, the language you implicitly use within your organization and with your clients, your customers, your community, all of that stuff has to be baked into your prompt in some way, or else your content will be generic as well.
Yeah. I love that explanation because that's the feedback I've heard from a lot of my clients who started playing with it is, I don't want this generic AI, text, or they'll hire someone to do their social media and then they're like, I can tell they're just doing this on AI, right? Like that's a lot of the feedback. So it's doing it well. So before I want to go to that topic. Before we do that, I just kind of want to repeat some things I heard from you ladies because, we have 2 experts on here. So for those of us newbies, Megan shared they use it for ideation or ideation where they're coming up with ideas of what they're going to do. Marissa, you mentioned using it for strategic. So give us an example of that, please.
Yeah. So a couple things. We're coming up with a new initiative. We have an idea. We have a sense of what this product or service will look like. And we know who our ideal customer segments are. We know the avatars. We know who we're trying to reach. We know the product. I might craft a prompt that would enable me to simulate feedback from my key demographics. And so I might assemble a virtual panel. And on the panel is person 1. These are their qualities. This is where they're from. This is who they are. Mother of 2, going from here, college educated, making this. And you can load up all of the specificity that you have, even if you make it up. The second person on the panel is, and you keep going. And then you're able to then, once you've assembled that panel, ask questions of them. I'm going to present you with a new product or service. This is what it's called. This is what it does. What do you think? What are the problems that you might have? What are the objections that you might have? What price points feel? And granted, this is all simulated. So what I might do is have that virtual feedback panel bring that information and insight to a human, like to a leadership team, and go, okay, I ran a virtual feedback. How does this compare with the actual conversations you've been having with stakeholders? What's missing here? So that's like one way, simulated feedback. And a lot of times when solopreneurs are just starting out, they may not have customers or clients. So this is a great way to hear the voice of the customer or the voice of the audience before you go out and reach them. And so sometimes that can help create different strategies or different messaging techniques. And sometimes I've found things like, oh, for this demographic, a risk reversal guarantee is actually the most important part of proactively overcoming their objection. Or here's a landing page. Here's the copy that we might want to put on a landing page. What about that resonates? What would make it even more effective? So sometimes things like that will be really, really great. I also love using it to prep for interviews, especially when that person is a known figure and they are someone who is publicly discoverable and their work is probably inside of a large language model, sadly, because then you can draw on their whole body of work and ask really incisive questions. And the way that I might construct that prompt is, here's me, here's the focus of my podcast, here are my typical listeners and their demographic, here's what they care about, here are examples of past episodes I've done that people loved. I'm now going to be interviewing this person. Based on everything I've shared, what are 15 things that I should ask this person to understand XYZ? So you can see how this conversational style prompt can be loaded up and how you can work with it where you're not outsourcing your intelligence or you're not outsourcing and giving away proprietary information, but you're using it as a sounding board to elicit and evoke your own best thinking.
I like it. I love that. And that's great. And if you're listening, you know, it is important to get into the voice of your client or ideal client. So, and that's actually going to change as you discover who your ideal client or avatar is, because a lot of times at the beginning of business, you think, oh, it's this. And then you get in, you're like, I like this. I don't like this. I like this. I don't like this. That's why, you know, the beginning of business, it's so important narrowing in on, you know, who you serve and what their hope streams and obstacles are so that you can speak to them. So it's interesting. A friend of mine showed me a little hack for that last week, like asking, you know, a certain question and collecting data and then dumping it into a word cloud. And the word cloud's going to pull out the top 10 words that my ideal client's using when they're talking about their struggles, frustrations, and obstacles, right? And because I wanted to be working on my own personal social. So it's like, okay, let me drop these words in here and see what happens. So it's, you know, you guys are talking much more sophisticated than anything I've done, but, you know, there's AI everywhere. I just used it last week. I was like, I think it's time to get an executive assistant. And I went into Typeform and they have an AI prompt. And I was like, oh, make me a pre-interview survey. And it asked me a couple of questions. And in 2 minutes, I had a Typeform generated AI because I stupidly posted in a Facebook group, oh, are you hiring? Yes, I'm looking for an executive assistant. So what do you get? 40, 50 responses, right? So I just like popped them all. Hey, fill in this pre-interview survey, took it down to 7, right? I just like made my life so much easier and actually hired an amazing candidate through that. Like I've never had this great a candidate for an executive assistant position, you know, and I was like, cool, I did all that. No one did the hiring for me. I mean, my COO was on the interviews with me, but you know, it really can make your life so much more efficient because I do think sometimes as the visionary or the owner, there are more processes that we would like to be involved in, but it's a matter of leveraging our time. We can't be in everything. So starting to learn these little hacks allows you to kind of get in and still be part of the game. So I love that. Megan, you talked about Jasper. You talked about using AI for search terms. You mentioned SEMrush and then the Google, is it the Google search terms? I think it is the
Google Search Console.
Oh, perfect. And then Jasper. So what is Jasper good for? And you mentioned writer.io, so I'm assuming that's helping us write something. So-
Yes, great assumption. So Jasper is also a tool specifically for writers. So whereas ChatGPT is like a jack of all trades and can pull information from everywhere on anything, Jasper is formulated to specifically support writing, whether it's long form, copywriting for websites, articles, you name it. It's a really, I feel like, an intuitive platform, and it's interesting because they use April, similarly to how it sounds like your Typeform experience went. They use like prompts within the prompts. So as the user, the tool is prompting you and changing its prompts based on the information that you put in to help your prompt be better and then give you a stronger result. So it's been a really interesting tool to use for long form content for us specifically. So we can develop an outline, perhaps in ChatGPT, because it does, I feel like, have a better grasp on, Marissa, to your point about more strategic thinking and thinking, quote unquote. So taking an outline from ChatGPT and then putting it in Jasper with different parameters like tone of voice, audience information, where the content will be going. So I think it produces a smoother result that needs less editing. Of course, before we send anything out into the world, we change things up to make sure we're putting our human spin on it, so we're not getting that uncanny valley of type feeling. But yeah, it's been a game changer for writing for sure.
So you touched on something. I'm going to play devil's advocate here because, I was always taught that marketing is heart to heart, right? Like the best marketing is heart to heart. And this is one reason I love doing video and audio because, it's like just imagining the listener on the other side. So you're actually speaking to a human being. And, if the best marketing is a human being speaking to a human being, how does AI come into play with that concept?
Totally. And, we have clients asking us this all the time. If we're using AI, how we're using it, why, if it's so easy to use, why are we hiring writers, things like that. But the way we look at it is that using AI is more a shift in strategy. It helps us get past that starting friction of whatever the project is. So it gives us something to react to, something to edit. It does not give us final copy for anything, whether it's a social post or website content, because it does, to your point, April, it always goes back to that human to human connection. So even though what's being generated from a first draft perspective might not be from a person, that the final copy definitely is. So we've put that human to human, heart to heart sort of connection to it.
So that makes sense. So what I'm hearing is it really just helps speed up the process and maybe get you further along the road, but it's not involved in the like polishing and end result per se. Is that a fair summary of what you shared with us?
Yes, exactly.
Cool. I like it. Yeah. And I mean, starting friction is a big thing, especially for small business owners who wear so many hats. It's kind of hard to suddenly shift from, okay, I'm on a sales call. Now I'm putting my creative hat on, now I'm engaging in social media. So I actually love that concept that sometimes it gets you over that hump to start or gets you into the creative part faster. And Marissa, I know you had something to share.
I'm always chomping at the bit when it comes to this stuff. So, and it's an interesting conversation to have because this is an ethical moment that each business owner must individually consider. What about that heart to heart, human to human connection? What about partnering with AI feels right or wrong? And there's no judgment. It's just what's most appropriate for that entrepreneur, for that business, because there's so many different factors here. And what I would caution is for those who are listening and going, I would never, right? Like there's a hard charge against no way. I would say there is a lot of writing that we do in our day that is not creative, heartfelt. We write emails, we make agendas, we write text messages, and those are some of the biggest ways you can save time using AI. Right now, I'll go, okay, I've got a 90-minute meeting coming up. Here are the people, that they're going to be leaders, they're going to be from these different departments. Here's what we're going to talk about. Here are the decisions we need to make in this 90 minutes. Can you give me a minute-by-minute agenda? And and I'll start prompting the follow-up email. I'll start prompting my initial notes. Now, I've not shared any proprietary information. All I'm doing is the thinking about and the math about, okay, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, there's some questions, and we're out. But now I've provided that value up front in terms of an agenda, because no agenda, no attenda. And now we have this place where everyone's showing up to the meeting ready to contribute. There's another thing I'll say for folks who are going, I don't feel comfortable putting my writing and work out into and using any large language model, whether it's Claude or ChatGPT or anything that is built on top of those systems. So that is certainly part of my story. All of my work from the previous 15 years of copywriting is in the large language models of both Google and Microsoft. So like my work has just been scraped and is out there. So now I'm in a place where I've chosen to, instead of working with a large language model, I've chosen to privately train a model where that information is only mine. And these tools are getting better, faster, and cheaper and easier to use by the day. So this doesn't sound as hard as I'm trying to make it. It's like gather your documents, drag them into a folder. Like that's how easy it's getting to train a model. So I've got a personal AI. You can go to marissa.personal.ai. Anyone can sign up for their own thing. And it's a private model, and mine is trained on 8,600 distinct concepts that are from all of my newsletters, my speaking engagements, my workshops. And so my project manager will go and interact with my private AI. How would Marissa respond to these 10 questions? What are the top 10 things? And so there's this element of duplicating yourself and your knowledge, but not in a way that's client-facing or customer-facing. It is a time saver, and maybe there is a use and utility within your business for a chat room or a lounge where someone is interacting and asking questions. And I know for me, 15 years of my previous life and still today is helping support folks with time management. So I get the same 30 or 40 questions about sequencing your day, time management, recovering from interruptions, and all these things where I've answered that question, 30 different ways in my career, and I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm like, just ask the AI. The AI knows so much more than I do at this point because I've forgotten more than I could even imagine about that topic. So I just wanted to give some other options because we talk about AI and it's this enormous field, and it's so much more than these large language models, although that is the predominant way that most of us will interact with AI.
Yeah, and Megan, I'd love to hear your feedback on this too, but sharing for me personally, and Marissa, we kind of touched on this on our interview. We ran out of time, but when AI first came out, I was like, oh, cool, blah, blah, blah. And then I heard something, someone who Marissa and I both know, in an interview talking about our brains being hooked out to the cloud. And I was like, oh my gosh. And it freaked me out. And I was like, I had this moment where I was like, am I being a stick in the mud? Why am I triggered by this? What is this the future? Are we going to be part technology, part humans? I literally remember having this tailspin after listening to this, and I meditated and prayed on it for 2 weeks. And it came to me no, this is not for me. And I really honor when that comes to me. So at first I was like, okay, nope, not participating. And, talking to people like you, Marissa and Megan today, thank you for your input. I've started to see, well, there are like mundane human tasks that we can replace ourselves. So we actually can be more creative, can be more in our human element, right? Like that's the potential value to AI. And then the other thing is, I'm a huge clean eater, and it's impossible to eat completely clean in today's world if you live in the United States of America, right? I don't care if you're eating all organic from the farm down the street, etc. Probably some chemicals blew on it. It's like, I joke, I was like, God blessed me with no kids because we would be living under a glass dome, homeschooling, growing our own food, right? Because like, I really can spin about this stuff. And so I had to come to this comfort level of, okay, I can do best means possible to protect my body that I consider a temple, but there's no way I can not get chemicals, not get hormones, not get this stuff in my body. Like it's too prevalent. And I feel the same way about AI now. Like there's AI in everything we do almost, right? So you can say, no, I'm not participating, but the reality is you will be participating. So maybe it's time to find peace with it, or like you said, make these decisions with integrity of, okay, I feel comfortable here. I don't feel comfortable here, right? I've changed. As I said, I just used it the other week. I'm super excited with my executive. I not only got an executive assistant, but I got someone that's going to help us internally with content management too, even though we have outsourced, because I had so many good candidates applying for this job and filling out this survey. So, I'm like, wow, that really worked. And I feel really good about this. So, Megan, I'd love to get your input here. We're kind of running close on time here. What I'd love to do is maybe you shared with us, we'll use it at the ideation and the strategic phase. We're never putting out a final product that's all AI, right? We're injecting our client's voice, we're injecting their spirit, their heart into it. So maybe can you all share with us like good ways to use AI, or if someone were a beginner, what you would recommend, or the value you found in using AI, and maybe where you're uncomfortable using it or not sure?
Sure. Yeah, I think, Marissa, you had a great example of using it for those mundane tasks that you don't want to do, whether they're agenda writing, email writing, things like that, where it's not going on your company website, it's not going out into the world in like a very forward-facing way. So I think those tedious tasks are a great way to dip your toe in the water and get a feel for how the tools work, what they can do in a really, I don't want to say risk-free way, because there's always some risk using whatever kind of tool you're using, but in a very low stakes sort of approach.
I'm nodding really hard because low stakes is the name of the game. For me, the first thing I'll have, especially if there are families or couples or parents, is I'll have them use AI to improve their morning routine. That for many of us is just like that time is precious, and it's time that we could be meditating, praying, exercising, not working, hopefully, there's stuff that happens before work. And a lot of times I'll meet with folks and they're like, I want to have more time to X, and where X is all of life that is not work. And so I'll have them work with AI to put in, how much sleep they find they need, or at least ask them open-ended questions to design the perfect morning routine that includes all of the things. And I have them get greedy about all of the elements of a perfect morning and really imagine and envision what that would feel like, and then list those qualities, and then have that AI prompt, and it's usually ChatGPT in this case for me, recommend an hourly, hour by hour calendar, that a routine that they can put into their calendars and start working with and experimenting with for a month. So that's one fun way. Another fun way I've used AI is this is like a real example, but it's so good for families. I've got a 3.5-year-old who loves to cook and bake. So it was just a couple months ago, and I was looking in our pantry, and I was like, okay, here are all the ingredients that we have. I want to make cookies with my son. Can you give me a recipe? And I got a recipe, and I actually baked the recipe, and it was delicious. But what I also did was, okay, now I want to use this as an educational experience and a sensory experience for my kid. He's 3.5. Here's, what are some elements during this process that I can emphasize to make it even more educational? And this is where I had some genuine great advantages. Make sure you mention the different steps. You're naming the ingredients. So there's some language, there's some sensory stuff. There's the process and the science of what happens when you bake. There's the safety element of the oven and working with it and when to know when it's on. And so we got to have such a richer experience together in the same activity we would have done anyway, which is baking cookies, but now we made it this enriching educational activity. And it's like these moments like that where I add more life, more value to my time. That's where I really, really get my biggest advantages from AI.
So you gave me a great idea with that. I have a client, I was in Darren Hardy's mastermind before, and he shared that he and his wife had bucket list items because they kind of loved their work so much that then when they wanted to take free time, they didn't know what to do. So they had like 1 day bucket list, like half day, 1 hour, 30 minutes. So anyway, a client of mine was like, I want to spend more time with my daughter. And I feel like when I have time with her, it's not that great quality. And I said, well, why don't you two sit down and make like a bucket list of like all the things you'd like to do together? But like they could totally use ChatGPT or one of the prompts to do that as well, like to help them come up with ideas. And then maybe she could give it to her daughter and she could circle the things she wanted to do, right? But I love that because
you said it. Yeah, there's another really related idea there is like help plan our road trip. We're going from here to here. Mom loves X, dad loves Y, the kids love Z. And then have that entire, like all the activities recommended that are within that area. We just did that with Palm Springs, and it was so spot on and actually fun and delightful because it felt like, you're talking to a web browser, but like it felt like you were talking to a buddy who's like planning this thing for you. And now that the ChatGPT app has the ability for you to use voice input and then receive the message back with a simulated voice, it's kind of fun to have that robo interaction that's just close enough to human and just not. Like it feels fun and new, and I think that is that's a good thing.
I love it. So I know we are running close on time. And like you said, Marissa, we could talk forever. Emily and I, my producer, were like, we really should do 3-hour episodes and just break it up into 3 because there's always so much good stuff. But what I'd love to do is, Megan, what other ideas or tips do you have? Like what we're chatting about? What would you like to share with our audience?
Sure, yeah. Well, Marissa, piggybacking off of what you were saying about ChatGPT, for more like personal things, I love using it for travel. I think that is so fun, and I think delightful is the perfect word for it because it's so surprising to get something that's tailor-made for you, not from a human. Like in years past, to get something that custom, you would have to go through a travel agent or have someone who knows you inside and out and planning something. So that would be one of my biggest tips, is using AI for travel and fun things. And then more on the entrepreneurship business side, I think something that we're going to be leaning into more at Muse is using AI for repurposing existing content. So taking all of that effort that you've put into your great content and then breaking it down or breaking it out into bigger pieces. We have taken ebooks, white papers, like longer form content like that, and broken it into really impactful social posts or shorter blog articles, and then vice versa. We've taken short blog articles that maybe are really good but could be great, and we've made them longer. So it is such a time saver, going back to that aspect of AI. It's taking those mundane minutes or hours that you might be spending doing that manually and expediting it in a way that impacts your day to day. So that's going to be an exciting journey for us in the next couple months.
I love it. So this topic's so deep, maybe in a couple of months I'll invite you ladies back and we'll have a check-in and see. It's going to be mind-spinning. Oh, 3 months ago we were doing this. Now we're doing this. So that would be a fun follow-up. But I know we're talking a lot of technology, a lot of AI stuff today. So I'd like to, I love that we ended with tips for like making your home life better, because, you know, every woman that comes into my mastermind or coaching, they're like, wow, my business got better and managing my home life got better too, right? Like they don't expect that. Like, when you start really putting intention into things, your relationships get better, you know, your time spent gets better, your work gets better, life just gets better, period. So, you know, if AI can help us live a better life, like I'm always for living a more full, connected, and loving life. So I love that. So I'm glad we came here. What I do need to do, because Marissa, you've been on before, Megan, you have not. So we love to ask all our guests to share a story at the beginning. And then we're all about feminine energy at the Vixen Voice. I know you work in an environment with a lot of feminine energy and you work in the creative world. So I have a question for you. When do you feel you're most feminine?
Oh, what an interesting
Like your feminine
question.
energy. Yes.
Yeah. I think being outside in nature and
Yes.
experiencing the natural world and just living how thousands and thousands of years worth of people before us have experienced nature, and just being in that environment that is so timeless and calming and can allow your energy to flow in ways that are meaningful and that you need in whatever moment you're in.
I love that. And if you're listening and you're more on the analytical, logical bent, I do this with all my clients. Here's what I challenge you to do. Go run around your backyard barefoot because it's a great way to tap into your more feminine energy. So I love that, Megan. I talk about it all the time. Thank you. And then my next question is, if you put a color to your feminine energy, what color would it be?
Ooh, I would say lilac, and I know that's a very specific shade of purple, but they are my favorite flower. They have so many positive memories for me, and I love that light, almost like shimmering pale purple. I love it.
Oh my gosh, that's gorgeous. Yeah, mine's magenta, so I'm pretty, and I'm like more pink than purple, so I'm pretty specific about what it is as well. I love it. Marissa, I think we covered that on our interview, but do you have anything you want to add in? I saw you getting excited about the colors.
I always get excited. So I don't know that we got there because we were just talking story.
Yeah,
and,
I think we ran out of time. Okay, so what color is your femininity? Or feminine
light,
energy.
Sunshine yellow, filtering, morning sun filtering in through a light white curtain, that filtered energy, filtered light. And I got really, when you asked the question about when I just like, I touched my heart because it's when my son is having his big feelings and like, he's having a meltdown and he looks at me and he goes straight to me, and the way that we just fit together and I just wrap around him and I just absorb it and I'm totally just giving him all my love and connecting with him. I have never felt more feminine, more powerful, and yet soft and peaceful. Like you're here. Like I was his first home. And he's coming back to, and we call it like he's got a charge because it's almost like a device that's put on a charger, and like we charge multiple times a day. It's like in the morning when he comes back from school, before bed, we just have a charging session where we're together, and it's those moments where like that's my connection to the divine as well. It's like, okay, here we go. We're right here.
Well, because if he's coming to you like that, you are in touch with your feminine energy, because that's when children feel safe around their mothers, is when they're in touch with their feminine energy, and unfortunately I work with a lot of my clients that had to become the man of the household as well. And so getting this balance in is can be challenging. So, just knowing and trusting that often when you are that safe space, that's when your kids come back to you, when they calm down, when they behave, for lack of a better word, right? And so, yeah, it's so important in everything. So I love it, ladies. Thank you so much. I love that we can talk about technology and feminine energy in one call. That's what we do at the Vixen Voice. So thank you for being able to play ball. I love the lilac color. Here's why I'm moving. And as Marissa knows, she does too. I do spiritual healing on the side, and I'm so excited because I'm going to have a home office and a healing room. And I wanted my healing room to be a shade of purple. So I think you inspired me to look for lilac colors, Megan. So I'll let you know.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, because actually my office I'll be able to paint, so I'm going to go, there's a teal that's in our brand guideline that I think I'm going to go with, so that'll be a fun pop of color along with my painting. So fun. Okay, ladies, I do want to honor your time, so thank you everyone listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please tune in if you want to hear more from Marissa and Megan, get more tips, check out our show notes, and if you haven't already, go to vixengathering.com and subscribe. If you subscribe, all of these goodies get delivered to your inbox. That's really the easiest way to listen and get all the goods, all right? So that you won't miss an episode. So ladies, thank you so much. And everyone listening, just remember the world needs more love. So think about how you're going to show up in love today. Especially, we are driving down this technology road. We're driving down this busy road. Stop and let's think about how we can share love and really connect to our humanity. So as always, we'd love to hear from you, ways you're showing up in love. We'd love to hear what you think about the show. And please reach out to our amazing guests and show them your love too. Everyone have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.